So we're looking at one-on-one conversations. So the problem is that sometimes, and this could be in a dating situation or whatever, it's hard for you to get those first few words out, or when you're talking, you're stammering or you're stopping, and it gets kind of awkward. So it's a lot of pressure. Sometimes after talking, you feel this huge pressure. Now, I'll tell you, even though in English, I really don't stutter, just occasionally. But in Spanish, which is a second language, sometimes I do stutter. So the whole thing comes back. Why? Because I'm still transitioning my self-concept to seeing myself as a fluent Spanish speaker, right? I haven't completely done that yet. So sometimes I will get stuck and I won't be able to say certain words. Do you know what I'm saying? So I still struggle with that in Spanish, and I'm using the strategy, the how to stop stuttering, start speaking strategy, and the techniques I'm sharing with you now. I use those strategies as I'm learning to speak Spanish and as I speak Spanish. Okay, so they really do work. So first thing you want to do is begin to see yourself, and we're talking about one-on-one conversations, dating situations, even an interview. See yourself as a great conversationalist. You're a great conversationalist. You're a great speaker. And you have something to offer, and people want to talk to you. As a conversationalist, as a great communicator, you would think that you have to be able to talk a lot, right? The truth is, if you're a good listener, people are going to think you're the best communicator in the world, right? So it's really more about listening than speaking. And asking questions, right? So a person says something like, so how was your day? So they're asking you, so how was your day? And you can say, well, my day was fine. It was pretty good. I just relaxed, or I worked out today. What did you do today? So immediately you turn it back and you ask them questions. And you continue to ask them questions and you respond. But what this does is it makes you a great communicator. They love talking with you. You don't necessarily have to talk as much because you're asking questions, right? You're asking more questions and you don't want to overdo it. And remember, these are temporary techniques because you're developing yourself into an excellent speaker anyway. So soon you're not even going to have to use these techniques, but asking questions and listening is something you should do all the time anyway. So ask questions, but see yourself as a great conversationalist. This means doing more listening than talking. That takes pressure off right there. Second, be conscious of the fact that when you ask questions, you're actually in control of the conversation. If I ask you a question, what do you think? If I ask you a question, what do you do? See, I'm asking you a question now, and what you're probably doing is thinking of the answer, right? You're thinking, well, if he asked me a question, I'm probably thinking of the answer. Right. So when you ask a question, you control the conversation. The person usually will respond unless they just ignore you and go on talking. You ask a question, they're thinking, they're responding, you control the conversation, right? So having that little bit of control makes you more confident. The more confident, less stress, less anxiety. Often this lowers your stuttering or lessens your stuttering. All right. Find words, phrases, and sounds to prime your speech pump. Remember, we talked about that. So find words, phrases, or sounds that you can use to prime. Some people use so. They start off with so, or they start off with like. Now, if you're speaking good English or whatever language, you don't want to do this long term, but if you need to do it to prime your pump, then use so. Or use another word, or use a sound, or yeah, and then start speaking. Okay? So do whatever you need to do, prime that speech pump, and then start to flow into the conversation. So a lot of times it's difficult to get started, to get that first word out. And once you do, you can flow. So priming the speech pump with words or phrases or sounds is a way to do that. Develop a speaking rhythm or cadence that you can use to create a speaking flow. Develop a speaking rhythm or cadence. So what do I mean? I mean, it's almost like in the military when we're marching, you have to sing or say a cadence. Left, your left, right, left, right? So that's a cadence. It's a cadence. And if you hear some wonderful charismatic speakers, they often have a cadence to their voice. Now, when you're speaking one-on-one, your cadence is not going to be as pronounced, but you can still kind of have a flow, a style, a flair, a cadence to the way you speak, even one-on-one. And when you develop this rhythm in speaking, right, what's going to happen is that you will begin to flow more. You won't get stopped with the stuttering, right? And once you start to flow, because often it's like a mental block, you start thinking, I'm going to stutter, and then you stutter, and you start thinking too much, right? Sometimes when you're not thinking because it's subconscious, but you want to start developing a flow and a rhythm to your speech and a cadence. It takes practice. And I talk about this in the comprehensive program, exactly how to do that, right? That helps you short term and long term. You develop a cadence and a rhythm to your speaking. Trust yourself and know that you're going to find the right words to say. If you start thinking, I'm not going to know what to say, or I'm not a good conversationalist, then you're not going to be. So trust yourself. Know that you're going to find the right words. You're going to be able to carry on a good conversation. You're a great conversationalist. Ask lots of questions. And just remember that when you ask a question, you control the conversation. And you don't have to ask questions the whole time. Certainly you want to respond. But just remember that these techniques will help you one-on-one. The other thing is speak in shorter sentences. This is good anyway. You don't have to go on and on and on in a conversation. Speak in shorter sentences. This is good because it gives the other person a chance to what? Remember what you've said and respond. So you don't have to say long sentences or act like you're giving the speech. Speak in short sentences. So these are all just a few techniques that I use in one-on-one conversations. The other thing that I'll do that I will mention a little later is I use my hands when I speak now. I still do. It's a physiological, it's a motor way for me to actually get my speech out, or get my speak on, if you will. So my hands help me speak, right? Now I don't have to use my hands now, right? But I use my hands and it helps me get the words out. And I probably relied on them more when I was transitioning from stuttering to speaking. And now it's a habit. So it's a way I can demonstrate or create words and help get the words out. So even in one-on-one conversations, you can use your hands. That's okay. Try it. I think you'll like it. The next thing that we'll look at are meetings, things that you can do in meetings.